It's there! Holy moly, this one's going to go big.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is a video I thought I would never get to make because what we're going to look at here is the emptier for Maygay's Donkey Kong. This was a machine that was released on the £10 all cash jackpot back in 1996, and on the first chip that this was released into the wild with, it had an absolute doozy of an emptier on it, but we've never had the chance to do it in the emulator. This one was chipped really hard. This was a proper alien style take off and nuke the site from orbit, whereby the emptier was so bad, and once this information got around, the information was passed around, people were going around, players were going around hammering these all over the place. There was a lot of chatter later in the day when the Fruit Machine emulation scene kicked up, and we were all talking about our Fruit Machine histories and all the rest of it, and all of this information about emptiers and methods and all that kind of thing started to come out. One of the methods that was always talked about in slightly hushed tones was the emptier for Donkey Kong. Like I say, this legendary emptier, but we've never had the chance to try it because we've never had the ROMs. This is one that would have been sort of destroyed. That the ROMs, the original doable ROMs for this, will have just been burnt at the stake, and we never thought we'd get a chance to play them in the emulator, basically for that reason. However, over at Desert Island Fruits, there's been a little mini project on the way recently, and what we've been able to do is get ourselves into a position where we can essentially recreate the behaviour of the unchipped Donkey Kong using modified versions of slightly later ROMs. And it all came out of this thread here over at Desert Island Fruits. As you can see, it was started back near the start of February. It was John Parker there who was looking at delving into Fruit Machine ROMs and seeing if there was any way to change the behaviour of them. Now, it came out of the thread that we had discussing that video there. If you remember, that's a relatively recent video on the channel, the Dodgy Insider Knowledge Bellfruit Attract mode. That fed into a whole thing over at Desert Island Fruits where we were trying to find some kind of way to capture this behaviour in attract mode of the machine sort of behaving differently based on where the internal compensators were. There were several things suggested for that, including diving into the code itself. Now, one of the things that I said in that video was that it's impossible to reverse engineer Fruit Machine code with just the emulator and the finished ROMs, because you don't have the source code, you don't have any way to look into that, you've just got the final compiled ROM. Now, it's true-ish, but it's not accurate. With enough effort, you can actually do it. It is possible to start unpicking the ROMs and analysing what they're doing. And John Parker actually went on with that concept and ran with it, because this guy is a coder, this guy is a programmer. This is the guy, incidentally, who built Arcade Simulator single-handed. There are 3, I think, or 4 videos on the channel about Arcade Simulator. This is the guy who made that. This is the guy who got the emulator to hook into what he built in Unity to give you this real working arcade that you can walk around. So if anyone's got the chops to do this, it's John Parker. Now, he started off, his original goal was to go into Project 777 Heaven and make that game behave differently. But within 2 posts of the second reply here, Mort is like, one thing I'd love to see one day is the Donkey Kong Unlimited nudges hacked back in, like that original ROM which somehow made it into the wild. Now, for the sake of brevity here, I am going to skip over a lot of what came. What I will do is I will link to this thread, and there's another thread that I'll link to as well that I'm going to come to in a moment. But thus began the Desert Island Fruits investigation. Part of this was finding the earliest possible ROM that we could. So that was the closest ROM that we have to the launch ROM. There was quite a few people getting involved in the discussion there. People who were actually playing the real machine back in the day. This fella here, Boulder Dash, he is, as far as I'm aware, he's one of only one or two people over at Desert Island Fruits who were actually doing these for real back in the day. Of course, for me, this was back in my bad old days of addiction, and I used to get clobbered by Maygays around this time. They had moved from their sort of £6 model. When they hit the £8 jackpot, I've talked about this before, when they went to the £8 jackpot, Maygay went into a whole different place and became, unbeknownst to me, if they were machines that you didn't know how to mess about with, you were going to have a very bad time. So you can see here at this point, John Parker is digging into the ROMs. He's using this bit of sort of analysis software called Gydra, I don't know how you pronounce that, to start digging into the nuts and bolts of what the ROM's happening, what's happening when the ROM is being executed, using the breakpoints that he can see and the jump points in the code. And so you can see there, now this is a long thread, you can see me scrolling through it here. If you think this is the sort of thing that might be of interest to you, because this is a fascinating thread, but I can't in good conscience sort of go through the whole thing. But where we ended up eventually is John Parker managed to get to the point that we could get skill nudges every single time nudges were awarded. Now, that got us closer to the behavior of the original machine. So at this point, let me just decamp. Let's just get the arcade backdrop back as well. There we are. So the idea of the emptier for Donkey Kong was there was basically, we're going with the idea that there was a debug routine. It was like a test routine that was put in there, a little bit like the coconut shy thing on Fairground. I've covered that on the channel before. On Fairground, there was one of the features of the coconut shy that the testers were having a really hard time getting the jackpot off, and they wanted to check that it functioned correctly within the code. So the programmer put in a little cheat for them so that they could always get the jackpot off coconut shy, and then they forgot to take it out for the release ROM. So that was where the emptier came about on Fairground, was this debug, this sort of test routine that was left in to the production code that always allowed Coconut Shy to be a jackpot. Now, the story here is that the coders on Donkey Kong had done something similar for nudges to give the testers an easier time to achieve all the wins and the features and check that everything was running as it should be. They allowed you to turn all nudges into skill nudges by holding down the cancel button. So basically what you did is in normal play, you just play in the machine normally, starts and holds, and then with the cancel button held down all the time as you're playing, whenever the machine awards nudges, instead of it being, like one nudge or two nudge or pseudo skill nudges, it will always be true skill nudges. So every time the machine offers nudges, they are skill nudges. You're always going to be able to get 4 nudges, and of course that massively increases the incidence with which you can get wins and features. Now, the story is that got left in. A little bit like the Coconut Shy on Fairground. They forgot to take it out, and they left this skill nudge cheat in the code that went out of the door when the machine was released. And as we know now in the here and now, so as we've known for many years, players back in the day, whenever a new machine turned up near them, they would set about trying to break it, and they would have accumulated knowledge as you go through the years. And if you're a good player, you've got player contacts and all that sort of thing, you're going to build up sort of institutional knowledge about the kinds of mistakes that tend to get made on fruit machines. So whenever a fruit machine turns up, unlike me, who would just start putting my money in and losing it like a numpty, these players would set about every single new machine, and their mission was to find a way to break it. Is there a free win on this thing? Is there a feature that can be manipulated? Is it vulnerable to plugging or sparking? If this is sort of still in the era of plugging and sparking, is it vulnerable to that kind of thing? Can we do things with weird button presses? That sort of thing. So in that kind of pantheon, just holding down the cancel button is probably, I guess, one of the simpler ones. So anyway, it was discovered that you could hold down the cancel button and you'd always get skill nudges when they were awarded. And then there was another bug in this one, which was the invincible mode holdover. Now, around this time, Maygay had gone to a sort of principle of the cycling invincible board. It's a Knockout is a pretty famous one that does that, where the gunge tank thing or the water splash thing turns from blue. It's normally blue at feature entry, and then once in a while it'll turn red on feature entry, and that'll allow you to take it to the super jackpot. Doesn't have to mean that the machine is streaking, and the Simpsons and all those clones used to do that with the invincible board as well. I have covered that, whereby they cycled an invincible board round once again, and that allowed the machine to pay a jackpot when the current pot was blocking at a fiver and the streak pot wasn't yet activated. Now on Donkey Kong, they left a sort of another quirk or bug in the code, whatever you want to call it, where when the invincible board comes round, on this it turns blue. You can see here, normally it's white, but on this it turns blue. When you get the invincible board, you play it out normally to the super jackpot. You can't fail to get the super jackpot on the invincible board. You literally just keep pressing start and it fills it up really quick and collects the super jackpot at the top. However, slightly like would also happen later with another Maygay machine, just the ticket, once you've had the invincible board, the code internally does not reset the invincible mode flag. So the feature is locked into invincible board. But the thing that breaks that or resets that flag is when you fill up the Donkey Kong trail for a feature entry, which is something that happens pretty often on this machine. It does like to put you in the feature because it can completely dick you around with these barrel jump things. It can kill you whenever it wants. So as far as the machine's concerned, it doesn't have to worry too much about putting you into the feature because it can always kill you. So quite possibly that would just happen naturally. The invincible board is gone and the machine can be back on its arse. But if you can get a win, any real win, gamble it once and exchange into the feature rather than filling up the Donkey Kong trail here. The invincible board flag has not been reset and you go into the feature with this ladder already filled to the top. You do one move, or you can just press collect straight away if you want, and you've got another super jackpot. And as long as you can avoid filling the trail in naturally, and you can keep getting real wins and exchanging into the feature, every single feature is then a super jackpot. Now, normally, and this is what we found, there's a big long thread there, and what we found here is that the machine really loves to put you into the board normally. Now, we can't be 100% sure on if it's almost protecting itself against this invincible board holdover thing, but what you find is, once you've had the invincible board, it really likes to spin numbers in and put you back on the board by filling up the trail. Like it will just spin in 4 or 5 numbers, it'll do a trail held, it won't give you holds on the reels or anything like that, so there's nothing you can do, and then it'll just spin in over the next spin or 2 spins, it will spin in enough numbers to put you on the feature. You can't avoid it, and then you've lost that sort of holdover banked invincible mode. But I'm sure you can imagine already how you can combine these two things. So if all your nudges are always skill nudges, and once you've had an invincible board, you can keep cycling that round as long as you can keep getting real wins, well, if you get skill nudges every time you get nudges, that's going to be pretty easy to do. And that essentially was this emptier. It wasn't quite as simple as just, well, all your nudges are skill nudges, it's going to be pretty easy to empty it. What we found, and we've been kicking around this a lot, Mort in particular, I'll get into more of what Mort's done in a moment, but Mort in particular has spent a huge amount of time on this one. And I've been dabbling around with it, and a few of the others, Boulder Dash and a few of the others over at Desert Island Fruits, Altered Emu and others. What we sort of found with this is that once the machine gets unhappy, even with those skill nudges, even where all your nudges are skill nudges, it becomes quite hard work to win on it. You can sort of keep yourself up at around 100%-ish. So technically the machine is still losing because it's supposed to be making money. But as a player, it doesn't really do you any good, because for every 10 or 20 quid that you're putting through it, you're getting 10 or 20 quid back out. So it's not really a great emptier in that regard. But it's this invincible board that really gives you the way to do that. So that was how the emptier was done back in the day. Boulderdash, who was playing these back in 1996, said, yeah, that was the way you did it. You basically just sort of kept losing on the board. You kept sort of deliberately dying and not taking anything to try and bring the invincible board round as quickly as you could. Once you had the invincible board and you'd taken your first super jackpot, you then lent into the fact that you had these skill nudges all the time if you kept the cancel button held down, and then you kept cycling around that invincible board until you'd emptied it or you'd taken enough out. The idea was then that you'd finish it off with all of those super jackpots. If the rest of the game had any value in it, you would try and take those out. And then you could either, the way you said it, you could play it one of two ways. You could try and leave something in it and not IOU it. But there were, and certainly when this thing was coming to the end of its life and players were all over it and they were getting chipped out, there was just an absolute sort of carnage session where you would IOU the things as hard as you could. They held about £80 in the tube, because these earlier ones were tubes, not hoppers. So you'd basically skin the whole thing, and then as you IOU'd it, you would try and have as close to £50 in the bank as you could. The bank limit was 50 quid, so you collect everything out that you could, and you didn't want to just IOU it for like 4 or 5 quid, so you'd try and work it out in such a way that you had pretty much 50 quid in the bank as it IOU'd, then you were still owed £50 by the machine, and you'd be able to get that back. You know, you have to put your name and address behind the bar or whatever to get your money. And that was when they were kind of on the way out. It was just a smash and grab, every man for himself, get as much as you can out the things. So by the end of this thread here, it does go on for quite some distance. I've been scrolling through it here. I was chatting in it at this point as well. So what I was saying as well is I'll get on here and I'll do a video about this. And I was doing a little bit of testing around with it. I was doing a little bit of playing with it. And I was kind of like, it just doesn't feel to me like it's quite there. Even though I'd never done them for real, it wasn't quite fitting with the description of what we'd heard. Mort was in the same camp as me. It was like, yeah, I think this is probably about as far as we can go with the ROMs that we've got and the patched ROM that we've got. That was the thing, because what John Parker had done is he basically found a breakpoint in the code where if you could change this breakpoint and where the code jumped around, it turned out to just be a change of like 4 or 6 bytes where you could basically pick up this sort of process within the ROM, and it would always flip you out for skill nudges. So that was kind of recreating the behavior of the unchipped ROMs, but it just wasn't feeling like it was quite there. And I didn't do the video for that reason. It just feels like there's something a little bit more to come here. And then what happened is Mort went in for one last hurrah. So I'll just give you a little summary here of where we got to with these ROMs. Going back as far as we could, we did not have the unchipped ROMs. They've never turned up. We don't believe that's ever going to happen. But what John Parker was able to do was create 2 hacked ROM files. Patch 1 effectively knops out 4 bytes in the nudge routine. And a NOP is basically no instruction. That's what NOP stands for. It's a no operation. So John Parker put these 4 NOPs in to tell the machine to skip going to normal nudges and then skip going to stopper nudges. And then because of no branching to those routines, where previously each 2 bytes would have had branching instruction of BNE and BCC, and then an offset amount of bytes to skip to, it would naturally fall into the final routine, being that of skill nudges. This gave skill nudges then each time natural nudges were offered up by the machine. BNE, incidentally, means branch on not on equal. BCC, I should know that and I don't, but basically what they're looking at is points in the code where you can jump out of a routine to get the code to do something else. So then we had a further hack, patch 2, of a further 2 bytes being replaced with no operation instructions slightly earlier, a couple of specific addresses there, replacing the previous 2 byte instruction. This then gives nudges after every spin. Now, there was a little bit of a chat around that. It's like, was this a thing? Was nudges on every credit a thing? And Boulder Dash was saying, no, that's not my memory of it. But we actually found an old archived out forum post that suggests it was every credit. I'll just show you that in a moment. But our kind of conclusion was, I mean, it made it really easy to empty the machine if you were getting skill nudges every credit, but none of us thought that was really a thing. It did make it easier to do the loop round on the Invincible board, obviously, because what we were finding with patch 1 is that you just weren't getting enough nudges to avoid it filling in the trail naturally. And Boulder Dash was saying, I don't remember it being this hard to stop it filling the trail if you had the skill hold cancel button cheat. So at that moment in time, all we had was patch 1 and patch 2. However, Mort, he'd said at this point, by the way, Morton said, I've had enough of this now. I'm not spending any more time on it. And then a couple of days later, right, I've been fiddling around with this some more. And he came back one last time with what he called here patch 3. And he's got some reasoning there as to what he thinks patch 3 is doing in terms of recreating the behavior of the original ROM. And I'll just give you Mort's reasoning here, because it's probably best coming from him because he's the one who worked this out. So he's saying here, putting my Maygay tester's hat on, I would want this debug routine to work as often as it could without it impacting me in testing all other areas of the machine. I believe holding down cancel at the point the nudge routine made the decision on whether it would offer nudges or not, then forced it to offer them. It also set a flag to tell the routine to go to skill type. I hunted for earlier commands which would change the state of the Z flag, whether directly or symptomatically. And then at address 0x12824, we have a command C1 in hex, which corresponds to instruction CMPB, which compares register B with the next byte, and then will clear Z to 0 if B does not equal the next byte. By changing this byte value to FF at 0x12825, it then changes the behaviour of offering nudges. It then seems to be forced to offer them each time it checks on the possibility of them being given, which are those pauses after real spins that I mentioned when nothing happened now seem to become nudges. So more nudges offered then now, but not after every spin. This then provides the sort of gameplay I expected all along and creates a halfway house between the two schools of thought out there on how this original ROM worked. So I then tried this patch 3 version, and straight away, that felt right to me. This really seemed to tie in with all of the descriptions that we'd heard back in the... Because remember, Fruit Machine emulation kicked off in 2001. So we were talking about this stuff relatively close to the real machines having been around. Obviously, here in 2025, this is like ancient history now. But back in 2001... you were only 5 years out from the real machine having been out in the wild, and the behaviour of patch 3 does fit in very, very closely with what we all thought this should play like from the description of the emulator. Boulder Dash there saying that it does seem to feel more like the original machine. So what we think now is that even though we haven't got the original ROM, we've got something that plays close to it, or close enough that I can demonstrate the emptier. Now, all of that there, I think it's interesting in and of itself, because it's a lot. You can see there, by the way, that John Parker's coming in with some more techie explanations of what's going on and where the code is switching. And it does give us some degree of confidence that we're there now with how this thing should actually behave. So in lieu of those original ROMs ever turning up, which I don't think is going to happen, what I will be able to do is demonstrate the fundamentals of how this emptier worked. And as Mort himself there puts it, it can only ever be fully solved with the v1.0 ROM dump, of course, but I very much doubt that it will turn up. Maygay probably burnt it at the stake, such is the grief and pain it would have caused them at the time. And before I go into the play, this is one thing that was dug out of the UK Fruit Machine Index archive. You can see here an entry for Donkey Kong. The trick with this machine is to keep your finger on the cancel button before spinning the reels. This will give you skill nudges every time, if it has not been chipped. When you bring a win in and exchange, look to see if the Donkey Kong logo is blue. If it is, then you can empty the machine very quickly. Take the jackpot, never hold any numbers, just bring in wins from nudges. This is because the blue mode will not be deactivated until you get a full number trail. If you don't hold any numbers, then when you exchange from a win, the feature will still be blue. Of course, if this doesn't happen, you can still win a lot of money, but just not as quickly. Now, that's probably true on a machine that was getting a lot of casual play. But remember, you can only take out what the compensator has in it that it's prepared to pay. What we found playing around with this in the emulator is that once you start to take the machine over percentage, it really, really does clam up. And even with those constant skill nudges every time the nudges are offered, it can be really hard work to win out of it. And you kind of need that blue mode. What Boulder Dash was saying was that he always played for the blue mode. He always tried to bring the blue mode round as quickly as possible and then use that to sort of turbocharge the emptier. And here's another one from 2006. This is an archive of the old Fruit Chat forum. These posts were made in 2006. And one here says, hold cancel down on Donkey Kong and you get skill nudge every credit. If it does not work, then it's chipped. And someone there is replying, good luck finding an unchipped Donkey Kong. That was something that sent us a little bit off the rails with this. Did it used to give skill nudges every credit? We couldn't find any other corroborating evidence for that one. So we actually don't think that that's the case. And my sort of gold standard on this is Boulder Dash, because Boulder Dash used to play these things for real. He was emptying these back in 1996, and he said, nah, my recollection on this is it was just that whenever you got nudges, they were skill nudges, not this nudges every credit thing. So he went down a little bit of a dead end on that one. So with all that, I will show this to you, but full disclosure, this is not the v1.0 ROM. To have the original ROMs, we'd need v1.0. They have never turned up. I agree with Mort. I don't think they ever will be. They will have just been destroyed. Operators would not want v.10 ROMs for this machine ever turning up again in one of their machines for real. So I'm sure these things were all destroyed with extreme prejudice. However, we are using the closest ROM to that launch ROM we can possibly get. You've seen there all the work that went into this. John Parker did a huge amount of work reverse engineering this. Make no mistake, that is a very, very slow and difficult process to find those breakpoints, to find the routines and to look what they were doing. He did patch 1 and patch 2, and then Mort really just went for the sort of final run on goal, as it were, kept mucking about with it and came out with what we have here, which we're calling patch 3, which we think is pretty close to the behaviour of the original, at least in terms of how it allows you to empty it. We can now recreate that process of emptying the machine. So it's only fair to give a big shout out here to John Parker, also to Mort, because they're the guys who've really done the spade work on this. But frankly, everyone else over at Desert Island Fruits, this has been... God help me, I know I keep saying this, folks, but by all means, if you think this stuff will be of interest to you, do come and join us over there. I always put links in the video descriptions to the relevant threads for my videos at Desert Island Fruits. I'll also link these 2 threads over there as well. But honestly, folks, like I say, come and join us, have a chat. This is the kind of hardcore fruit machine nerdery that we do all the time there, and this has been a really great group effort from the crowd over there to get us to a place where we can actually have a go at this mythical Donkey Kong emptier. So with all that said, that was quite a bit of waffle, but frankly, the emptier itself isn't... I mean, the thing that's interesting about this emptier is not so much how it works, but rather the sort of point that this was a thing. This was a real thing, and this was how it worked. This is how these were emptied back in the day. Now, we've got it here. So you see there straight away that my nudges then, you can slow that down, that my nudges there straight away are skill. Now, that doesn't mean that you can always get a win. Just because your nudges are always skill nudges doesn't mean that you can always get a win, but there'll probably be... See, this can't get anything there. So this machine is actually in a place where it should be relatively close to giving us a blue board, but there we are. So let's just go on. Now, the way that now, one thing that Boulder Dash was saying is that he used to kill himself on the barrel jumps. The problem that you have, and we've got it here. Oh, see, now I kind of... The problem is and this is why I've not been... Right, so there we are. Oh, no, I won! It's gonna give me a fucking cash frenzy at there. It's giving me a fucking... This is why I don't like... I like just collecting. Whatever you get to. So there we are. We have got it. It is in a place where it's prepared to chuck a jackpot at it. A jackpot at us. The problem that we're going to have now is that was not a blue board, obviously. So what we're going to find now, and this is, so even if I win this gamble, which I didn't, the problem that I've got now is that, so you can see there that all of these nudges are coming in as skill nudges. The issue that I've got now is that wasn't a blue board. So I've taken a jackpot out of it. And what it seems on this is it's prepared. What it will do is it doesn't necessarily have to do it off a... Oh, I actually had a feature there. There we are. Let's just see. Oh, no, I've done it again. See, this is why I don't like going round the board. Because if it doesn't give you the chance to... See, I mean, that... Now there, it let me kill myself, which is fine. But the problem is, if it just wants to push you on to the end of the trail, it can end up... And I didn't really see an out for myself there because the high rise had gone up pretty big too. So it's possible now that I'm going to have to work a little bit to get the blue board. But let's just see. It should be pretty close to a blue board as downloaded. So I'll carry on playing. Because from that old archived forum post that we found there, and from what Boulder Dash was saying, this was all about getting yourself onto the blue board and then using that to cycle round to do the actual empty. So I've got to take that tenner out there. What we'll do is we'll carry on playing normally. And what I'm going to try and do is do it off trail. So even though I've got this skill nudges thing here, what I'm going to try and do here is, so you can see that there's far more nudges than you would expect here in terms of frequency. But what we want to do is we just want to get into a spot where we can get the blue board. So let's just play for that. But I might have just knocked it. The problem is I might have just knocked it back a little bit with that jackpot there. So it's probably not going to be quite as close to the invincible board as it was before. I mean, I could just go back to the RAM file, but what I'll do instead is I'll do it naturally, because that might be a better indication of how it might take a real player to do it and get that. So I'm just going to ignore these wins here because we probably just need to get a few credits through it. We know that we've got the skill nudges when we need them. We know that we can fall back on those skill nudges once we need them to cycle round the blue board to stop it filling up the trail. So, there we are. So the nudges have gone away a little bit now. So, there we are. And the theory now on patch 3 is that what's happening is that the machine is awarding nudges whenever it could give any kind of sort of player benefit thing. So all those routines now are all going into nudges rather than, and then it's branching off into the skill nudges because that's all it can do. Which we think is basically recreating what that original debug routine used to do. Because remember, what we're trying to do here is not create something that never existed. We're trying to replicate that behaviour of the original machine. Where what we got, high rise there? No, it's a basic 40p. So what I want to do is just collect it. We're trying to recreate that behaviour of the original release ROM, whereby if you held down the cancel button every time the machine awarded nudges, they would be skill nudges. So we're not trying to create like I say, a whole new thing. This has all been about using what we've got to get us close to that original unchipped experience before they were nuked. The stories around this one are that when the rechips came for this one, they came very, very fast and very, very hard. It was a full-on national campaign. This machine had been quite successful. Maygay had sold a fair number of them, and they'd gone on general release. It wasn't just a test machine or anything like that. It had got as far as a full release. So there were loads of the brand new machine. There were loads of these all over the country. And then it was a mad, mad scramble for the operators to get them rechipped because they were getting IOU'd all over the place. Now let's just have a look. Now, I don't know how far away the blue board's going to be. The thing is, when I've been doing my practice runs at this, I haven't done that, taking the jackpot out of it. Exactly for that reason, but I thought it was possibly worth showing here. But what we should have is... Oh, see, that's just a quid. Everything rounds up. There's no... So... What we'll do here, we'll just keep going until it... Well, eventually we should get a blue board off it. But it might be a little bit further away now. I mean, the problem with doing an exchange in is that it's going to be a little bit higher, and the high rise is going to be a little bit higher as well. So by filling in the trail here, what I'm going to do is get a basic feature entry. No. So, okay, it's taken a few quid here, so that hopefully we... Oh, I missed it there. I'll deliberately avoid the wins. We're just going to go for... Just going... There we are. Quite a few numbers there. Can we get them? No. Just take one nudge there. May have slightly stuffed myself here with that with that early jackpot. Okay. Well, it usually doesn't put you in my experience, you can get one away up at the end. It will usually offer the end. There we are, but it hasn't held on that one. No nudges. There is a barcode, you just saw it there. There is a barcode. If we can take the barcode when we're just trying to play it out, you can get 6 quid off the barcode. Don't even really care what's up there. Stepper doesn't like to give it to you. There we are. No. Come on, baby. I've really stuffed it with that early jackpot, haven't I? No! Come on. Obviously, I can get a win there. And this is also what would have happened, of course. That what's happening there is that the machine is offering nudges before it knows that it's got to give you skill nudge. And this was part of the original emptier as well. In that the machine goes into its offering nudges routine before it realises that it doesn't realise, of course, that it's going to be skill nudges because the code doesn't know what's happening in the next bit. It's not checking ahead. So the machine enumerates the reels, and it's like, I can give you whatever here. I can give you one nudge or holds or whatever, but instead it then gets sent off into this routine, and this happened on those original ROMs. It then gets sent off into the routine that awards skill nudges. So where the machine thought it was doing something safe, it is instead offering you skill nudges, and then you're getting wins that it doesn't really want you to have. Oh, see, 160 there. Now, that's a really high start. I might be... Oh, this Go Bananas can... Oh, so 160 there. There we are. I should be able to kill it off on that. Ooh, see, I think that's really sketchy. I don't like doing that at all. You can see why there. You can find yourself forced into a win that you don't want. In fact, I'm going to stop doing that. If it puts me on the board, I am just going to collect. Because it gets a little bit... I'm just collecting. Even if it's £2, I'm just going to collect it. Because it starts to get a little bit high risk. Let's just try and get that blue board in. I'll see if I can do it with an empty bank. There we are. We'll collect that quid out. It's really hurt me here, taking that early jackpot out. We should have definitely had the blue board by now. So you can see that the rest of the machine is working correctly, by the way. The compensators are working correctly. The blue board coming round is working correctly as well, depending on what you're doing elsewhere on the machine. Mortar's got the blue board coming round every 180 to sort of £200 through it is the blue board coming around. So we haven't completely stuffed the machine here. You've got to remember, of course, that debug routine that was left in the original ROM, that went out there as a release ROM, and the machine worked fine if you weren't holding down the cancel button. So you can have these little extra routines and little things in the ROMs that make a machine emptiable if you know what you're doing, but they don't sort of break the machine in terms of everything else. I mean, God, let's go straight for the top of the pile, an alien. A doable alien. Or even a perfect deal, for example. Those machines, if you weren't doing the empties on them or the jackpot trick on it with alien, those machines kind of worked fine and kept a percentage if you weren't doing that stuff with them. So that's kind of the whole point of these things, isn't it? Is that it allows you to do things within the parameters of the machine running sort of normally for everyone else. That's what we tried to get to here with Donkey Kong. Where's my blue board? Oh, I've got a win now. Oh. Blue board? No, it's just a thing. I might have to. My concern there is that what I've done by taking that jackpot is it's sort of it's taken that out of the invincible pot. That's my concern here, is that and if that's the case, it's not going to be like put another tenner in to get it to come round again. It's going to be putting 180 or 200 quid in. So what I think I'm going to do here, because you can see there, after that early jackpot, I'll give it one more feature. If it doesn't go blue, what I'm going to do is go back to my starting point, because we know there that's pretty close to the invincible board. But that does give you an idea there. This is probably useful in that it gives us an idea. It gives me an idea as well, for that matter, in how if you take a big win not off the blue trail, that doesn't give you the chance to get the invincible flag set, and then you're stuck here. We'll give it one more feature. If it's not red, I missed it. It doesn't matter. Rare, blue. Well, blue. No, it's not right. Okay, what I'm going to do is load this back in and go back to the start. Right, there we go. Let's try again then, shall we? So I have learned the hard way there. Do not squander your invincible board win on a non-invincible board, as it were. So what we'll do is how I've actually been doing this in the practices. I should have stayed on script, really, shouldn't I? And actually just collected the boards when you go in. Boulder Dash says that he used to just kill these boards off when he was trying to bring the invincible round, but he may have had a little bit more finesse than me in avoiding those forced wins or maybe there's a little shimmy that you can do that I'm not entirely aware of. But not to worry, because I do know that from this starting point, we're probably only 3 or 4 boards away from the blue board, and then we'll be able to start doing the cycling. So let's do that. And I'll do it the way that I normally do it, which is just going for the numbers. Okay, so the first cup, so it's probably going to put us in there, is it? Yeah, that'll put us in. So the first couple probably won't be. It might. No, there we are. So there you go. See an absolute basic high rise there. That'll fill up to £1. There was some talk about these going around with 20p tubes as well, so that when you were doing the full empty on them, you could actually take an extra tenner out in the 20p tubes. But then there was a hopper version, and we've got one here as well that rounds up to £1 to round quids. So the machine, it definitely appeared in the later, I think it's the Apollo cab as well, when it was still on the £10 jackpot. So few different configurations of it going around. One of the things that we discussed in the thread there as well was all the different ROMs that were available on this. They did like 10p £8 ROMs. There were £15 ROMs as well. This got an upgrade to a £15 jackpot. But the very first rechip got rid of this issue with the skill nudges. The blue board cycle, interestingly, the blue board holdover thing survived to a later chip, but because it was really, really hard to stop it just filling the trail, that didn't seem to be such a critical problem. The one that they chipped out really, really hard was this cancelled skill nudges every time. Then they went back again later and sorted out the problem with the blue trail roll holdover. That's the kind of timeline that we've got from this at Desert Island Fruits. So we should be, might even be this one, we should be coming up to the blue board. Come on. No, it's not that one. Okay, it should be the next board, I think. Let's just see. And then, so we'll go for that. Hopefully it'll be the next one. And that sort of gets the machine locked then in a really weird place where it just can't get out of without filling the trail, which it might try and do, but hopefully I'll be able to avoid it. Okay, well, we can. It doesn't really matter. If that does it on an exchange, that'll be fine. It just. No! So we'll take the high rise there. That's £1 again. That's fine. I'm not risking. I'm not risking having it getting to the end again, because that was just a bit. That was a bit harsh, I thought. Come on, fill. Do the nudge there. Any nudges? Yeah, there we are. That'll do it, won't it? Should be a number up there. This should be it. No, where is it? Okay, let's see. Is it going to be this one? Yes, there it is. Right there. God, that just goes to show. And I had exactly the same problem. Do you remember with the Great Escape video? Where I think I had to go back 3 or 4 times because it just wouldn't behave. Just from exactly the same RAM file, you can get some quite different behavior. So this is a slam dunk now. For a super jackpot, that's all we have to do is keep pressing start. And so far, so much the same. This would happen anyway. This is what it would do this for anyone. It would just do a numpty player. Could it happen to me occasionally back in the day? You could get that cycling round. However, the key point now. Oh, that can happen by the way as well. You can get a repeat out of it. Don't think there'll be any more. There we are now. Oh no! Oh my God, look at that. That would have killed it. If that had done, say, a trail held there, or spun in now, because there are some there. If that would have done that, that would have immediately fucked us, because it would have put us straight back in and filled the trail. Now, what we absolutely have to avoid now is it filling the trail. So we really just want, so that's fine. We know that any nudges are going to be skill nudges. There we are. And now we just want to, there we are. So we've got bananas up there. Now all I have to do is win this gamble. There we are. Now watch what happens to the high rise when I exchange in. Bosh. It's forgotten to reset the invincible flag. There we go. And there is another super jackpot. Now we're locked into the loop. And even though this ROM is, like I said, this is a modified ROM, we're now on. This is the same loop. This is what you did on the original unchipped real machine that was out in the pubs and the... We might lose that, by the way. It doesn't like to win on sketching. No. Oh, no, we don't want that. No, so obviously we want to stop this as low as possible. There we are. We'll stop it all the way down there. Our kryptonite here is filling up the trail. Can we... We haven't got 7... There isn't actually a win up there, is there? I don't want to bring in... Let's just do that. And it's unlikely to give us a hold after... Don't fill up. Don't fill up the trail. Oh, come on. This is the danger zone now. Oh, it's been... There we are. This is where... See here? Oh, no, it's probably going to lose on that, you know. This is where the skill nudges are saving us, though. Oh, it did as well. It's just... I'm getting unlucky here with the numbers. It's not, because it doesn't, this is the thing, it doesn't think it's giving us wins, but then this has been an absolute fucking arsehole here. I can't see it giving a hold after nudges, no. But you, oh, stepper could be a little bit dangerous. Stop, you fucker. This has been a bell piece here. There, have we got cherries up there? Yes, we have. Fuck me, that could lose, you know. It's giving us some sketchy numbers here. There we are, that's fine. So it's a little bit high in 10 there, but we'll still have it. There we are, because we haven't filled the trail up, we can just take that because it's not resetting that flag. Now we've got it locked in. This is what the original... Those guides that we dug... Oh, that's a nice quick one, isn't it? This is what the guides that we dug up off the internet said. This is what those of us who have talked about this over the years, even though we never got to do it. This is what our understanding of it was. And most importantly for me, this is what Boulder Dash said he did on the real thing. Get it into the blue board as quick as you can, because that then gives you this really quick cycle then to get the big banks in. You can see there, it won't now repeat, by the way. In my experience, the repeats are gone. That first repeat that you get is just... I'm being a little bit cavalier there, aren't I? Why did... There we are. Oh, fucking hell. I need to stop yapping and just focus on not letting it fill the trail up. We should have a fecking banana up there. No? 7s? No. The main thing I want to avoid... I want to avoid numbers there more than anything. Oh, that's fine. That's fine, because we can do that. Now, that for me there, that's probably one where the code just doesn't... It's like there's a win 2 away. I'm either not going to give you nudges, or I'll give you 1 nudge. But because it then goes off into the bit that it forces it to give it the skill nudges, that's where that happens. Right, fucking hell, right. There we are. So... No, there'll be no... So you get the idea. Now we can just... And what you can do is just speculatively hold as well. There we are. It just got that. That's probably going to lose. Yeah. Because obviously, even though it's giving you a win, it can still... Oh, that... You know what? That's all... We've got 7s, but I'm not particularly fancying that one, to be honest. No, there we are. Now it's held. There's got to be a cherry up there. Yes, there is. Right, okay. It's fine. We just need to... On these lower wins, it generally lets you in the gamble because it's not seen any risk there. The machine is prepared to pay £2. So it's getting itself... There's these two things working together here. There's the fact it's always giving skill nudges, which it doesn't realise it's going to do when it's enumerating the actual board, and it's got this flag that hasn't reset for the invincible board. Add those two things together, and this machine now really has no... Oh, that was fucking... That was a bit lucky. I was a bit careless there, wasn't it? This machine basically now has no way to... Short of filling the trail, which you can see we are avoiding here, and this is where the skill nudges come in absolutely pivotal, is the machine can't really avoid this now. As long as we're careful on our side to not let it fill up the Donkey Kong trail. We can just keep it, and it's quick as well. Can you see here? This is quick. I mean, I don't think you'd get away with this for very long if you were being watched. But the thing itself doesn't look too sketchy, does it? You could probably, because your hands are going to be down on the buttons anyway, so you could probably get away with just, surreptitiously keeping the cancel button held down. I think you'd get away with that potentially, even if you had people watching you. I'm not sure you'd get away with taking this many jackpots out of it, though. So you can see there that, oh, there we are. That's quite handy, actually, because otherwise that would have filled up, wouldn't it? Shall we just have one more for the sake of it? And then, so as long as we keep doing this now, every single board is going to do this. You get the idea now. I mean, I think we've already now, at this point, I think we've already emptied a real one with what we've got in there. Emptied it and IOU'd it, haven't we? So what I'll do, is there a... See, now you can see there. It's... Oh, now I don't know what happens. If I take a normal jackpot, does that reset the flag? Well, we'll soon find out. Let's just see. I don't think that resets the flag. You can see there that was obviously one of them where it didn't think that it was offering us. It thought, well, I'm safe there. I don't have to offer you a jackpot. I'll just... Because compensating machines did shit like this all the time, didn't they? These sort of teasy wins where it was like, if only you had one more nudge, mate, you'd have had the jackpot. Bad luck. So the code thinks, right, I'm gonna do one of them twat things. No, it hasn't reset it. There you are. So there we are. We'll have one last one. One last one. There we go. And now, what we'll let it do. So what we'll let it do now is we'll let it clear. I'll show you it clearing that flag. And the way it does that is by filling up the trail naturally. So let's actually let it on. It can force this on you anyway. But I'll do it deliberately. And now watch the feature now. There you are. And it's like, okay, that loop has been broken. And what you will find now, and what I'm going to do, it's an absolute arsehole for making it look like you're getting away. So a decent way up. So what I'm going to do now is one final thing that I can do is switch in the unpatched ROMs, so the ROMs that don't have the John Parker / more changes. The machine doesn't notice that the ROMs have changed, so it preserves the RAM file. So what I can do here is the equivalent, and this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to collect that out. Let's just see what our actual stats are. And then what I'm going to do is the equivalent of turning the real machine off and swapping out the ROMs for the ROMs as they were supplied by Maygay, but its actual RAM file will be preserved. The state of the machine will actually be preserved. Let's just let those stats settle. So there you go. That's £26 in and £144 out. So yeah, on a tube machine, we would have completely emptied it, and we would have a big IOU behind the bar. So that, in essence, is what you could do with these machines for real in their unchipped state by doing that blue board cycle. What I'm going to do now is load in the ROMs where you don't get the skill nudges every credit. And this is pretty easy to do. Here is the GAM file. And all I have to do is take off that patch 3, because the ROMs have been named SA7-103, and then we've got 3 appends on that for patch 2 and patch 3. So by modifying this, what it's going to do now, when I load that layout back in, we've preserved the RAM file, which is the battery-backed RAM in the real machine, but we've got the ROMs, so the machine knows where it's up to, but we've got the ROMs that aren't giving us the skill nudges every time. So here we go, just booting up. And as you may suspect, this is not going to be pretty. Right, there we are. So let's just go. Now, this machine should be... We shouldn't be getting the skill nudges every time now because it's... Yes, you can. I think you can tell straight away that we're not getting the nudges. The other thing, however, that we're not getting is any kind of wins to speak of, because this is the other thing where this is the most awful thing about all of this is those are not free wins. And have a look now at the state that you can leave this machine in. So our high rise there, oh God, is a quid. That's effectively a quid because 40p will round up to a quid. Oh, I know what it's going to... Yes, so it's going to bounce. Oh, a quid. Still, look at that. We're right at the top. I mean, I can throw a Mario in there. That's a repeat chat. Right, £5 million says I'm going to rick a 2. He's got that. He loves to use that lose square up there. And this feeds into... Mort was saying that he was at uni in 1996. He was at his first year in uni in 1996. And he remembers very, very clearly taking some awful, awful kickings on this machine, which, of course, now, with the benefit of hindsight, makes perfect sense. So he would come onto this machine. Oh, you saw there, by the way, that they were pseudo skill nudges, both. So we did get nudges there, but did you see they weren't? Yeah, there you go. Now it's just giving us one. So there, with the sort of patch ROM or with the cancel cheat, the machine there, it only wanted to give us one nudge, but with the original unchipped one, that would be skill nudges. So the machine decides to give you sort of nudges or whatever first, and then the routine catches it to make them skill nudges. And that's where it gets into trouble. But yeah, Mort was saying he took some horrendous kickings on these. I've talked about before about Maygays in general around this time were just absolutely awful for me. I have... These were around. These £8 Maygays were around before these were sort of the last wave of machines that I was playing across in the UK before I moved to the Isle of Man, and I was still spending a lot of time in the pubs and arcades. And I got some horrendous kickings from these £8 Maygay. I hated them. I really, really grew to hate them. I wasn't quite getting my head around what had changed from their £6 jackpot days, £4.80 and £6 when they were magnificent, and even a numpty like me could get streaks on them with a sort of halfway degree of regularity. But these £8 ones and then later £10 ones, they were just complete misery fest for me. And looking back now, I know why. You can see here it's played. Look at that, it's a £1 board again. It will let you get, because it can just bounce you from one barrel. See there, it doesn't have to fill the high rise up, and it can just bounce you around these barrel jumps. There you go. And it's got the lose square at the end. And what you will find here, and I think New York, I think probably had a similar-ish code base to this. What they will eventually do, and all Maygays of this era could do this, they will sort of, by sheer brute, blunt, dumb force, you will eventually get to the top feature. It'll begrudgingly give you a top feature, and what it'll do is give you £4. And the way that Donkey Kong does that is, you see there, you've got the £2 awards up there. It'll give you £2, £2, and then spin. So you can wait an absolute eternity for a top feature. You think, oh my God, at least I've got a jackpot, and it'll give you £4. Because it can actually put you to the top while it's still blocking. It is absolute. See there how these nudges now are a lot less use because they're not skill nudges, and that really, we're still getting nudges, but whereas before we were getting skill nudges, now we're just getting normal nudges where the machine where it controls what it wants to give you, which is what it would normally be able to do. I mean, I think you get the... I'll just take it out for one more feature and we'll have a look at my session. See there? Had a little pause. and says, okay, you can have, because Maygay's code at this time. See there, it had a little think about it. You can have one nudge there, mate, because the bananas are 2 away. Whereas if you've got on the old unchipped one out in the pubs and the arcades, or on the patched ROMs here, that's going to be 4 nudges. So you can see there how the machine doesn't think it's... You see there, it had a pause. This is our theory here, is that the machine is enumerating what does it want to do. See, there's a stopper nudge. See, and we got 1, 2, 3. So with our skill nudges, we're going to get 3. But there, it's like, right, I've had a little think about... Oh, there you are. You can have 2 nudges, mate, because 3 nudges would be a win. And that's why those skill nudges are so important. I'll take it out because this has been pretty... There we are. 1 more feature. Fuck me. And it's still blocking at £1. I suspect... Oh, foot on there. That's going to go to that last barrel jump, is it? Now, even if I win this, I probably won't this win, but it can still kill me anyway. Yeah, there you are. So let's just have a look. I think you get the idea. This is how you could leave these. And Mort says he got his fucking arse kicked by the one that was at uni. And what for... Let's just have a look. How much have I put in? 18 quid. Let's just go then. Let's just go for 2 more, because that's 20 quid in. What have we had? 3 features up to now? And they've all been blocking at £1. There's no feature there. Let's just see. There we are. So 4 features for 20 quid. 20 quid in. And I think we can say with some degree, yeah, this is blocking at £1 still, isn't it? Look at that fucking high rise. Can I win that? No. So you get the idea. This machine will now... It knows the compensator's still working, and it's gone, whoa, 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 what the fuck? Go into tape mode, don't give the bastard any wins on the reels, let him onto the feature once in a while, and block at £1. So there you are. That's the state that can be left in. That's the state that the real 1 could be left in on those emptiable ROMs. So there we go. That's I'll trim this down in the edit, but this is probably still going to be a longish video. My feeling is I think it's worth it for 2 reasons here. We've got 2 big things going on here. The first off is this fantastic community effort over at Desert Island Fruits. Most of the spade work, most of the heavy lifting here done by John Parker and Mort, but also you see there, these are both long threads and lots of the community sort of joining in to get us to where we are now, which is we've actually had the chance. That's the second thing, of course. That big community effort over at Desert Island Fruits has now led into the second thing, which was we can at least do the thing that allowed these machines to be emptied back in the day. There you go. That's very much the description of what I was doing in the emulator there. And do remember that when this was written, fruit machine emulation was not a thing. There was no way of doing this. That's very much a description of how you would have done it on the real unchipped machine. And that's basically exactly the same play method that I just used in the emulator. So it has given us that opportunity to recreate the Donkey Kong emptier, and I think it's safe to say that without that, we would have never been able to do it, because I cannot imagine that those V1.0 ROMs exist anywhere in the world, either for real waiting to be dumped or in a digital format. Could be wrong on that. Weirder things have happened over the years, but these have been, along with the original release King Kebab ROMs where the barcode emptier works, these have been the unobtainium of ROMs over the years. So it's been fantastic to get a chance to do it in the emulator. Now, I don't want to start off on my usual rant at this point, but what I'm going to do instead is let Gamers Nexus do it. Now, Gamers Nexus is one of my favourite YouTube channels. They're a tech YouTube channel. Very popular channel, lots of subscribers, loads and loads of views on their videos, and they do sort of fact-based coverage and analysis. They do go into opinion pieces, but they've always got the evidence and the data to back it up. It's fantastic. If you're into your tech stuff, Gamers Nexus, and you're a video gamer like I am, Gamers Nexus is fantastic. Now, recently, there's been a hell of a hullabaloo over NVIDIA's new graphics card. If you're a PC gamer, you'll know who NVIDIA are. You probably know who NVIDIA are anyway, because they're they're one of the biggest, by market capitalization, they're one of the biggest companies in the world because they're into all this fucking AI bollocks, making GPU AI accelerators, but they still make graphics cards as well when they can be bothered, and charge us a fucking arm and a leg for them in the process. But they've just recently released a new series of graphics, the 50 series, and it has been a disastrous launch. Stock shortages, driver problems, cards black screening, horrendous pricing, all the kind of things that could go wrong with a product launch have gone wrong. And then on top of that, it recently came out that a percentage of the graphics cards that they're selling, that they're manufacturing these PCBs with the GPU die on them, bits of them are literally missing. They're missing some of the bits of a graphics card that make up a graphics card. Now, what Gamers Nexus here are doing was basically a fact-based opinion piece about how could this happen? How, on the top of all this other shit, which is bad enough, how do you, when you're NVIDIA, how do you sell a large number of graphics cards that are defective to the point that bits of them are missing? What could the explanation be for this? Now, what I'm going to do is play you a 4-minute clip from Gamers Nexus, and I'm sure you will see the parallels between what this guy here, Steve, is saying on his video and what I have been saying about fruit machines, and how stuff like this, like Donkey Kong here, gets out into the wild. It's a 4-minute clip. I've been thinking about chopping it down a little bit more, but I've decided in the end to just play you the whole 4-minute section. Remember that this guy's talking about graphics cards, but keep in the back of your mind where I've ended up, and I've been building up over the months now as to what I think about fucking nonsense like this getting released out to the paying and playing public, people like me and Mort, who were going out back in the day and were thinking, or assuming, dare I say, we just as a base level of assumption, thinking that the things that we were playing, that were all in the pubs and the arcades and all over the place, taking our money and licensed and regulated, that we always just assumed that these things would at least, at a base level, work properly.
Now, frankly, we find it completely unbelievable that NVIDIA would ship these units unknowingly, because if NVIDIA actually did accidentally ship these, that is a level of incompetence that's honestly frightening and kind of shakes the foundation of the entire premise of why you buy NVIDIA. The whole point of buy NVIDIA is the same reason you bought Intel in the mid-2010s. So Intel was sort of the put-together professional of, you know you're going to get something that works in the mid-2010s, and AMD was like, I don't know, sniffing glue or something. Not really sure what AMD was doing back then. They've turned it around. It's good now for the CPU side. But NVIDIA is in that position. Intel was in this scenario where it's like, you buy NVIDIA because you're pretty sure it's just going to work. That's the thing the guy on the stage in the leather jacket said. He said it just works. And I don't know if he said it before Todd Howard or not, but that's something that Jensen Huang said. It's the whole premise of NVIDIA and paying more for it. And that foundation is starting to show cracks. This has been a disastrous launch for NVIDIA, and this is a level of incompetence. If they shipped these without knowing that there was this defect, that is terrifying, because every single chip is tested off the line. We know this for a fact. At the fab level, they test them electrically for the presence of all the physical hardware. They know precisely what is getting shipped. And at the board partner level, when they integrate the hardware, we, GN, we have been to factories where they assemble video cards off the SMT line. Every single video card factory I've ever been to has 100% of video cards function tested. Not only are 100% function tested, they function test them with at least 2 software suites. One is often their own proprietary thing. Another is provided by NVIDIA. And we've never been allowed to show it, but I have seen it. And I know that it function tests for the presence of specific hardware units. And I find it completely impossible to believe that somebody didn't know about this and that this was a mistake. So that leaves the other option, which is malice. So NVIDIA's got 2 options here. They've got incredible, unprecedented incompetence from NVIDIA to not know this, or they have the malicious decision to ship it anyway and hope no one notices or deal with it later. So that's what I think. And if it's the incompetence option, fine. You can be incompetent if you want. There's nothing illegal about being incompetent. It might have consequences legally, but it's not illegal to be an idiot. And if that's the route that NVIDIA is going, then that again sort of calls into question why you buy NVIDIA to begin with. Because that's what you're paying for. It's the competence. They are put together. Their drivers haven't really been questioned for like a decade. Whereas Intel and AMD have both gone through really heavy scrutiny for drivers. And all of that comes down to the same thing. So it kind of comes down to if such competence questions in QC are now involved at the chip level, it makes us question how much they tried to QC things like 575 watts down a 12-volt high-power cable. It calls the entire premise of the card into question for the 0.5% of fuck-ups. To ship 0.5% of its inventory with missing hardware that only the most advanced users would even notice is either a regrettable insight into NVIDIA's actual competence, or they thought they'd get away with it. That's what we think here. We're not sure which it is, but we don't see many other options. At the end of the day, this is completely unacceptable for a $2,000 video card or a basically $900 video card in the 5070 Ti. It's just like, this is insane.
So I'll just finish by saying there, because Steve put it very well, but I'll finish by saying, wouldn't it be awful if there was an industry in the UK that for decades were producing products, gambling products, whose entire premise really was to encourage people to put money into them in an attempt to win more money, and the absolute guaranteed result of these products existing would be addiction and harm. Wouldn't it be terrible if for decades that industry had got away with systematic incompetence and, as Steve put it there, malice, or we also know in some cases, at least provable cases in the case of fruit machines, it was just corruption. All we can do on that is pick our poison, because there are no good answers, and the consequences of that incompetence, malice and corruption was counted in broken and lost lives. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll catch up with you next time. But for now it is goodbye.